Hello and thank you for joining us at the virtual RYA Dinghy Show here in the Knowledge Zone. We're delighted to be able to welcome to the show three of the biggest names in ILCA sailing. Team GB's Alison Young, Team GB's Elliot Hansen and the British sailing team's Lorenzo Chiavarini. I met them earlier to find out how they've been getting on and more importantly to get their top tips on the racing edge out there on the racecourse. Last time I saw you, Elliot, actually was last year's RYA Dinghy Show, and you'd just been announced as the selected sailor for the Tokyo Olympics. So I guess you were really excited at that point to be kind of in your last run into the Olympic Games, and then suddenly the world stops and your plans have changed a little bit. How did you cope with that at the beginning?
I mean, for me, I was one of the younger ones and still felt like I was on a bit of a learning curve, or still do feel like I'm on a learning curve. So still feel there's more in the tank. So actually the initial news wasn't wasn't that upset by it. I kind of saw it as an opportunity, and I've got some great training partners in the UK, and just gave me an extra bit of time because I was also one of the last ones selected along with an ACRA to kind of right the wrongs and make sure I was prepared. So yeah, I kind of was looking forward to it, if anything.
Yeah, I'm sure. And so, Lorenzo, for you, obviously being a training partner at that point, how did that change your mindset, knowing that that was maybe going to be an extended period of time?
Well, actually, at that point, I was recovering from a injury, and I'm still am sort of, and so I haven't been much help to Elliot this last 12 months. I think for everyone, it's been really hard to plan and stay positive and reassess every so on. So
yeah, definitely. And that brings me really nicely actually to you, Ali. So sailing obviously is a huge mental game as well as a physical game. This won't be your first Olympics. How did that change your mindset, and have you come across anything in your career so far that kind of better prepared you for the postponement?
I suppose, well, pretty similar to Elle, really, in a way. But yeah, I might be one of the slightly older ones on the team now. But yeah, just see it as an opportunity. Just gives you more window to kind of learn and develop in. And yeah, just think we're pretty fortunate on the British sailing team that yeah, the COVID stuff's a challenge for everyone, but we've got great support team around us to help us figure out kind of the best way to navigate the space and to make gains at the same time. So
how did you feel jumping back in the boat straight into quite a high outcome pressured regatta? Lorenzo, like you say, you're coming back from injury, so perhaps there were some unknowns there. Do you think that working together as you have done for so long now, that helped you both get back in the boat? So Lorenzo, perhaps you've got some thoughts on that.
Well, the lead up into the Europeans for me was pretty hectic. A lot of stuff in the gym, hiking on the hiking bench, and more a controlled environment, so have less opportunities to hurt myself again. Before you get to an event, there's a big group of 120 sailors trying to get off a rabbit run or a start. And it's so congested, and I was really struggling. And but as soon as the racing started, and your adrenaline kicks in, and there's a bit more space on the starting line, and you can use your strengths like speed and tactical awareness. It soon fell all into place, and I was very happy that I was able to get into that system very quickly, and yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear. And Elliot, maybe I know you've suffered with some injuries in the past as well. What do you think drops off quickest? Do you think it's harder to get back into the racing mindset, or do you think that just the hours of hiking and downwind sailing that you do, if you lose that boat speed edge or are just not able to quite keep up with the fleet, do you think that hurts you more? Which of those do you think is more important?
Yeah, difficult again, and it's totally on an individual basis. I kind of know sailors who they have a few weeks off and they struggle to tack a laser, which is one of the more simple things, or I think it's more common that it's kind of the finesse and feel stuff that you'll miss a little bit. You know, kind of just dropping off the back of a wave, or maybe a little bit of feel in the light winds that maybe takes a bit more time to get back. And I think what's been a real challenge sort of this last 12 months is the lack of big fleet racing. So, you know, Lasers will get sort of 150 plus boats at a major regatta, and granted they won't all be on one start line, but you'll still be racing with 60-70 boats on a start line, and no matter how much training you kind of do in Weymouth with your training group and so on, it's really hard to replicate some of that. And a lot of it's rule of thumbs, which you just have to remind yourself of. And you know, like Lorenzo said, it's quite hard to just flick that switch. So a couple of days sharpening up on those skills, and then from there it's just you know, you flick into your race day mindset, and that's kind of when you fall back onto your years of experience and having done it so many times before, and you kind of from there on you just don't doubt yourself, and see where your skills will take you.
So Ali, you're, as you mentioned earlier, one of the more experienced members of the British sailing team now, and of the Olympic team as well. How do you see kind of the run up now going in terms of where are you spending most of your energy? You must have had plenty of time to get super fit on land, but how do you make sure you translate that onto on the water boat speed and endurance?
Yeah, no, it's kind of really about kind of getting some time on the water with some quality training partners, and just yeah, there's some changes to technique, but yeah, trying to get the good quality group so that you're always pushed and you can kind of get your racing skills kind of up to speed a little bit more. I mean, obviously there's challenges as to where you want to go and to do that, and where you can go. But yeah, later in the year, hopefully we should get a good stint out in Japan for the conditions out there. But yeah, kind of maximising the opportunities we've got, and just kind of adapting to what's going on. So just having a concrete plan is not the best thing at the moment.
And do you think that any of that can link into some of your decision making? So a conversation I've had a few times with different people, perhaps we'll start with Lorenzo here. Do you see a championship as a whole as every race is weighted equally? Or do you see kind of as the pressure ramps up towards the end of the event, you know, you really need to be on top of your game and getting those low scores at the end of the regatta? How do you see that regatta in your decision-making process?
I think you can't look at it as a whole. I think you have to split it into small areas and have those, you know, basic, and make everything easy. Like, you know, off the start, you want to be aggressive, but, you know, channel your aggressiveness into making that lowered gap. Then after that, you're going in off the start, you're going into more of a where I'm positioned irrespective to the fleet, what phase I'm in, and you're only just constantly focusing on these things around the course, and, you know, splitting them up to stay fresh. And you know, because if you start zoning out and thinking about, oh, I need to start doing this and this results wise, you get lost and you probably put too much pressure on yourself. So yeah, just splitting things around the course and keeping it really easy. And you know, it's all just drills that you've gone through for a long time, and yeah, just have to keep it simple.
I think that's some really good advice for some people who are perhaps getting back into racing after a bit of time off the water over the last 12 months or so. Touching on what you were talking about, pressure, Elliot, you've been in some high pressure situations before. How do you deal with that pressure, and do you think that as a way you can use it in a positive way to influence your results?
Yeah, I think the older I've got, I think the more of that side I've enjoyed it. It's kind of the pinnacle of the competition, if you like. I think, you know, sailing a laser is a simple boat, and yeah, like, you know, a lot of the techniques are quite tricky and intricate, but in terms of the actual racing, it's quite pure and simple, and really the racing is such high quality that the pressure side of it is really something that I think you have to learn to enjoy. I think if you want to, you know, keep doing well. You see all the people who have achieved so much in years gone by, and see how much they sort of advance their game under pressure. And if it's not something that's going perfectly well for you, then you try and work on it. you know, as soon as you've done something and you know, it's so blatantly obvious that you can do it, then that whole side of it becomes so much easier. I think the first time you do that and prove to yourself more than anything that you can do it, then it becomes a whole lot easier. And that's the same for closing out regattas or, you know, high pressure final races, high pressure medal races. And the more experience you have of doing that, then certainly the easier it becomes.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's really something to be said for one of those points you made there. Typically in sailing, we're not very good at congratulating ourselves for the small wins. Like, you never see someone celebrating a race win if they don't end up having a great regatta. And whilst, yes, we need to be looking forward to improving performance and, like you say, closing out events, actually, I think whatever level of the sport you're in, if you manage to win a race, that is an achievement. So being able to kind of give ourselves a bit of congratulation, and then being able to move forwards, I think that's something that perhaps in other sports people do a little bit better. So maybe we should be a little bit kinder to ourselves along the way.
For sure, yeah, for sure. And I think there is a difference for me as well, I think, in the performance versus the result, especially when there's so many variables in sailing. So, you know, like you said, the little things there, it might be that you've you know really struggled to get off the start line, but if you do that and you know, the performance of that start line is great, then by all means give yourself a pat on the back. The race result might, you know, fall away for other reasons, but if that's what you've been struggling with, then yeah, just see it as progress and keep moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really interesting how you manage that. So Ali, do you have any strategies on when you go into an event, you've got your process regattas, you've got your outcome regattas, does that factor into the amount of risk that you're willing to take either on an individual race or over a whole series?
Probably look at it a little bit from kind of the conditions and stuff for the day, and then as to what the relative risk is there. Like if you've got a really unstable offshore day or a really quite stable onshore breeze, then kind of the risk and stuff is kind of different in those scenarios. But yeah, I never approach it that I'm trying to win a race. I think that's always quite high risk way to approach it. You're going to probably find yourself in a corner somewhere, which might come out glam, but you know, on the odds are it possibly won't. You'll be digging yourself out. But yeah, it's more kind of identifying your priorities, executing to those to get yourself to the top mark in decent shape, and then yeah, just kind of chipping your way off around the race course after that, and then yeah, kind of build that process through the regatta. And some days you can play a bit more risk, and some days a little bit less. But yeah, kind of approach it that way.
And so Lorenzo, Ali kind of alluded to there, she's quite aware of what kind of sailor she is on the race course. Do you think you have a pretty good awareness of what your style of racing is, and how important do you think that is to making sure that you're kind of working on your weaker areas and keeping your stronger areas strong?
Yeah, for sure. You need to understand, you know, what style of sailor you are, I guess. But you also have to start to, at one point, understand and, you know, put everything into place so you do learn all the other sorts of styles of racing. Because at the end of the day, whoever understands the type of day it is, if it's a persistent shift or if it's dig into something, or it's a pressure day or it's a shifty day, whoever understands that first and then implements their style into this will dominate that day. And that's where you learn, you can calculate the risk of how much you want to give and how much you want to retain with the fleet, and how confident you would be.
How much do you think the on the land fitness side of things translates to boat speed on the water? Is that a direct kind of comparison that you can make, or is there an element of there's no substitute for just hours of hiking?
For sure, the Laser's a physical boat, and yeah, you do heaps on the land to build that fitness, and we work very closely with the physiology team that we've got to make sure that we're making gains in the right areas. But yeah, I mean, ultimately the hiking bit is the key thing, and it's very hard to replicate that close enough on land, even using kind of hiking benches and stuff. But I think looking at the radial fleet over the years, then the physicality of the sailors and the amount of sailors that can sail the boat hard has increased over the years, and that's just improved the kind of the quality of the depth of quality in the fleet.
I know kind of we talked about a bit about the athlete lifestyle and things like that. Is there anything that you do which kind of completely takes you away from sailing, which you think is really important to make sure that you're fresh when you're racing? Ali, what do you do to chill out and just get a bit of free headspace?
Yeah, probably not the best person to ask about that. It's not my recognised strength. But yeah, I mean, it is important that when you have got that downtime that you kind of able to switch off and take your focus away, so that it's not so much the physical recharge, more of a mental recharge, so that you've then got the energy to hit the next bit of your programme hard. Yeah, I mean, I've tried some activities which have gone more or less well in that. I mean, bouldering's on the banned list for the reasons, but yeah, I think it's quite individual. I think it's being aware of yourself and of the things that help you kind of switch off. Which, yeah, let alone your downtime, it's how you manage that through a regatta as well. I mean, there are some people that you want to go and chat to your mates at the end of the day. Other people, a little spin and bit of read a book and kind of switch off on your own. So I think it's very individual, but I think it's important to recognise and to keep aware of kind of where your physical and mental energy are, and then how to keep those balanced well and in the right kind of space when you need them to be.
I think the key is there's probably people watching this will think, "What Christ, you get to sail for a living, or what on earth do you need downtime for?" But I think there's the problem is with it, when you combine your passion with your work, it does a little bit of it can become like work. There's not every day that it's the thing that you solely want to do, albeit it's most of the time. So it's really just likening it to a normal job in some ways, and whatever someone does to kind of get away from their 9 till 5 job, and like Longo said, it's totally individualistic, and but some people will think, Christ, I'd just love to go sailing in my downtime. So it's about finding something that's safe and gives you energy.
How important for the racing that you do, like reasonably long regattas, long races, how important is diet to that, and how much time and emphasis do you place on sorting that out for your regattas?
Yeah, fueling is fueling and resting is the two most important thing for a long event. Our worlds used to be 7 days. Thankfully, they've shortened it down to 6. But every race, usually 2, could be even 4 sometimes on the water, and they're usually 45 an hour long. And fueling to keep your carbs and the protein up to reset those muscles for the day after, and also that comes into your downtime and switching off and your spin at the end of a day, and activation to get your muscles going at the beginning of the day. It's quite a long process, and it took me quite a while to get into, and it's not that enjoyable. If you're a junior sailor, you just want to be with your friends and all that, but it's a process which you do have to do.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So all of us here have been through the junior and youth pathway to get to where we are now. For those who are watching who are perhaps moving from junior to youth classes or youth classes to Olympic classes, what are the things, if there's one thing that you know now that you wish you knew 10 years ago, you could tell your younger self, what would that be and why? I'll start with Ali, because you've had the most experience, and maybe there'll be something clearer to you that you tell yourself when you were kind of a junior or youth sailor.
Yeah, I like the experience just means that I'm older than Elliot and Enzo. I think probably, especially when you're making that transition, to be patient. You see a lot of a lot of people kind of drop out of the sport when they're making those transitions, because you've stepped up and you're either started senior sailing and everyone's got a lot more experience, and you're kind of back at the bottom of the ladder. But yeah, be patient, and have a clear process of what your stepping stones are and what you're trying to address. And really trying to use and integrate the support around you, and learning off others, be that other sailors at your club, other sailors in the class you've just moved into, or a wider support team that you've got around you. We're massively fortunate on the British sailing team with the exceptional kind of support staff that we do have. But yeah, if I could knew how to integrate those better, and learn better, and then that would kind of speed up the whole learning process.
I think, like Ali said, I think, the main thing is that so many people's journeys are different, and it's easy, I think, especially coming from the UK, where it was such a rich heritage of good sailors, to start comparing yourself, be it to different generations at the same age, or different people you're racing against right now, and think, oh god, I'm already behind the curve and so on. But so many times I've seen that be such an insignificant thing, and actually it's just the determination, the hard work, and the talent that will come through. The fact that you started a bit later, or maybe haven't fully invested in it so early on, isn't that significant. And I think one of the greatest examples I know of that close to home is Ben Cornish, who's one of my best friends, who sort of met him in 2010 at the RWA Youth Nationals. He was heading a standard, and I think he was literally third from last. 4 or 5 years later, he's Giles's training partner in the Finn at the Rio Cycle, top 10 at the Finn Worlds and Europeans, and now he's out in New Zealand sailing with Team Ineos. So a huge swing there for a guy who was doing his last youth nationals and was third last.
I think just thinking back at it, just moving from a topper into a 4.7 laser, and going to my first international events and just getting spanked. What me and Elliot had was a great, rivalry, but to push each other, and we had a lot of friends like that, to really push each other every event or every weekend training with the national squads. And I think we did a lot away from those national squads apart, and then come back even stronger to keep challenging. And I think that's what's really pushed us to this level, where racing, wanting to beat the other person, is really there. And we've pushed each other and other people along the way, a long way.
I think the message kind of overwhelmingly that you've all given me there is that don't try and measure your journey against someone else's. If it's something that you want to do, then make sure you put everything into it, put the hard work in, have the determination and the drive to kind of address the things you need to address. And don't look at someone else's performance and give that a reflection on yours. Your own journey is your own. So I think that's quite a good message to send to the youth sailors out there today, and hopefully in 4 or 8 years time we'll be sat with some of them having this same conversation. So thank you so much all for your time today. It's been really interesting to hear your perspectives on a few things. Hopefully there's been a few tips for some people who are out there who are really hoping we can get back out racing in the UK soon. It's been a pretty difficult time for sailing without much racing over the last 12 months at any level of the sport. So fingers crossed, it won't be long before we're back up and running, and we'll have those big championships all over the country and all over the world, where people can test the things that they've learned about themselves and about their sailing over the last year. So thank you very much for your time.
Thanks to Ali, Elliot and Lorenzo for those fantastic tips to practice when we can get back out racing. Make sure you visit the UKLA stand in the exhibition halls to find out about all things ILCA racing. Next up, here in the Knowledge Zone, is Mark Rushell talking tactics and rules. And also don't forget to watch who will be crowned Club of the Year on the main stage at 1 p.m. At 1:45 on the Knowledge Zone, we have Decision Making Under Pressure with performance psychologists Chelsea Orme and Susie Burton-Wiley.